Protection magic isn't about turning yourself into a fortress. It's about learning what to let in and what to refuse at the door, and the old ways knew the difference mattered more than anything. They understood that protection has 3 faces, 3 gates, and knowing which one you're standing at changes everything. First is warding. This is the boundary you set before anything arrives. It's proactive magic, the line you draw in advance that says this far, no further. You're not fighting something off, you're establishing terms. A warded space has rules, and those rules hold because you put them there when the air was clear and your will was sharp. Think of it as locking your door before you go to bed, not scrambling for the latch when you hear footsteps. Then there's banishing. This is active removal. Something's already here, already crossed the threshold, and now you are showing it the exit. Banishing requires different energy entirely. It's confrontational, immediate, and it doesn't ask permission. You're not preventing, you're ejecting. And you need to know that what works for warding won't work here, because the game has already changed. Finally, binding. This is containment when removal isn't possible or safe. You're not eliminating the threat, you're making sure it can't move freely. Binding acknowledges that some forces can't be banished, some presences won't leave, and in those moments your power lies in limitation, not expulsion. That distinction matters more than most modern practitioners realize. Salt, iron, threshold. If you remember nothing else about protection magic, remember those 3. Start with salt. It preserves. It purifies. Not because someone decided it was mystical, but because salt literally prevents decay. It keeps corruption from taking hold. And when you look at folklore, Mediterranean, Celtic, Japanese, Slavic, doesn't matter. Every single culture that had access to salt recognized this. They knew, the thing that stops rot in meat stops rot in energy. Protection magic is just applied preservation. You're salting the boundaries so nothing unwanted can take root. Iron's different. Iron disrupts. It grounds. There's this persistent thread across continents. Fairies can't cross it. Spirits recoil from it. Malevolent energy hits iron and just stops. Not because iron is magic. Because iron pulls everything back to the material plane. It's dense, magnetic, conductive. Metallurgically, it behaves like an anchor. The folklore isn't superstition. It's observation dressed in story. And thresholds, doorways, windowsills, property lines, these are where your sovereignty is most obvious. You're either in or out. Welcomed or not. Every protection tradition on Earth fortifies thresholds first because that's where the boundary is clearest, where your intention has the most teeth. A threshold isn't just a place. It's a declaration. So when you're building protection, you're not conjuring something from nothing. You're working with materials that already do the job. You're just making it intentional. Banishing isn't aggression. It's boundary enforcement. It's saying, this doesn't live here anymore. And it starts with the most powerful act in magic, naming the thing. You can't remove what you haven't identified. Once you've looked at it, called it what it is, dragged it into the light and said to you, this, here, air, you've already done half the work. Because invisibility was its power. The moment you name it, it loses that. Now you're just deciding how it leaves. The 2 classic techniques are reversal and severance, and you choose based on whether the source matters. Reversal sends it back where it came from, mirror work, return to sender energy, the psychic equivalent of a not my problem. Severance cuts the cord that connects it to you. You're not concerned with where it goes after. You're just done feeding it. Both work. One's about origin, one's about attachment. Feel into which one your situation needs. Timing used to be everything. Waning moon for removal, the sky itself pulling away. Saturday for Saturn's boundary keeping, threshold guardian energy. Dusk for the liminal moment when day releases night, when things naturally let go. Not because the universe cares what day it is, but because you're working with symbolic momentum. You're aligning your intention with a pattern the world already knows. And that makes the magic move faster. Binding gets a bad reputation. People hear the word and think curse, think manipulation, think crossing a line. But here's the thing, sometimes you can't just banish someone from your life. They're your co-worker. They're family. There's a legal entanglement, a shared lease, a custody agreement. You can't make them disappear. So instead, you limit their capacity to harm. And that's not malicious. That's strategic. The classic method is symbolic restraint. You make a puppet and wrap it in black thread, tight and deliberate. You write their name on paper and freeze it in water, locked in ice. You tie knots in a cord, each one sealing an intention, a "you cannot reach me here." You cannot poison this space. You cannot twist my words against me. You're creating a physical representation of limitation and letting that representation do the heavy lifting. The magic isn't in your anger. It's in the boundary itself. Here's what matters. Binding isn't hexing. You're not causing harm. You're preventing it. The difference is that you're acting in defense of your own space, not in attack on theirs. You're not wishing them pain or loss. You're saying, at this far, no further. And that keeps the ethical framework clean. You're not the aggressor. You're the wall. And sometimes, when banishing isn't possible, being the wall is exactly what survival looks like. Here's the thing about mirrors in protection magic. They don't just deflect. They reflect back to the sender. Which means whoever's coming at you gets exactly what they're putting out. And that's elegant, honestly, because you're not generating the negativity. You're just returning it to its source. The universe's most perfect boomerang. Historically, mirrors were buried at thresholds, hung above doors facing outward, carried as talismans tucked against the body. Because reflective surfaces were believed to confuse malevolent spirits, they'd see themselves and either flee or get trapped in their own reflection. Imagine being so twisted that your own face sends you running. That's the power here. Self-confrontation as weapon. Modern reflection work uses the same principle, just updated. Mirror boxes for binding with self-confrontation. You're essentially locking someone in a room with their own intent until they break. Black mirrors for scrying who's working against you, because sometimes you need to see the face before you can defend against it. Even something as simple as a compact in your pocket, positioned to face outward when you're in hostile territory. Small mirror, big statement. The beauty of reflection magic is that it scales with the attack. Small nastiness gets small consequences. True malice gets the full weight of itself back. You're not the judge here, you're just the mirror. And sometimes that's the most devastating thing you can be. Here's what you actually do with all this. First, your daily ward. Something so simple you'll never skip it, even hungover on a Tuesday. Salt across your threshold before you leave. A candle lit with one clear intention while your coffee brews. Even just standing at your door and saying out loud, "And nothing crosses here without my permission." That's it. That's your baseline. The thing that says every single morning, "I'm protected, and I decided that." Second, keep your banishing tools where you can grab them. A bundle of rosemary or mugwort for smoke, because sometimes you walk into a room and just know something needs clearing. A bowl you keep filled with salt water for aspersion when the smoke isn't enough. And a phrase, a prayer, a command, something you've said enough times that it doesn't require thought. When you need to banish, you need it now, not after you've rummaged through drawers trying to remember where you put the matches. Third, and this matters, know your binding protocol before the moment arrives. Have the materials. Know the steps. Because when you're sitting there realizing someone's influence has wormed too deep and needs to be restrained, that's not the time to be learning. That's the time for muscle memory. You standing at your threshold with salt on your fingertips, understanding for the first time that protection isn't fear, it's sovereignty, and you've always had the right to claim it. Follow Blackfire Atelier. I'll see you in the shadows.